Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast, brought to you by Rocket Agency. I'm your host, James Lawrence. Welcome back to the Smarter Marketer podcast. I'm here today with Rand Fishkin. Rand, welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me, James. Good to be here.
It's great to have you on here. I think most marketers in Australia know of Rand, but if you're in the very small percentage that don't, Rand is co-founder and CEO of SparkToro, which is makers of very, very fine audience research software. In 2004, Rand created and launched SEO Moz blog, which morphed into Moz. Moz became the most popular community and content resource for search marketers around the world. In your time at Moz, as CEO of Moz, Rand, you grew it to 130 employees, $30 million of revenue, over 30 million visitors per year. You've been pretty much a key player in the industry for the last 20 years. I've been fortunate enough to have been at a few conferences around the world where you've kind of taken center stage and kind of inform marketers as to the big trends that we need to be aware of. So have to say your content is always in my top 2 or 3 thought leaders around the world. When I started the pod, I said, Rand's the guy I want to get on here. So it's great to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thrilled to be joining you, James.
So I thought I'd start with a very general question, which is maybe a harder one to answer, but just macro landscape at the moment. It's obviously been such a big kind of 12 months in digital and changes, ChatGPT, generative AI, changes with Google. I mean, what are the big things that you kind of feel as marketers we need to be across?
Well, to be honest, I say this to a lot of marketers, which is what's happening in the world is generally less important than what's happening in your world. So if you are, an e-commerce, B2C marketer who's very reliant on advertising channels like TikTok and Instagram and sort of, direct consumer purchases, low purchase price, low consideration process, I'm not sure that there's a ton that's changed. I mean, I would say certainly there's some attribution weirdness that's going to be going on with GA4, whose default models are going to over attribute certain advertising channels.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating. There's some big changes around privacy, third-party cookies going away next year, and changes to how the ad platforms are going to operate that will mean that you have less one-to-one matching of which consumer saw which ad and made which purchase.
Yeah.
And instead you'll get these sort of federated lists of groups of people who, this group of people experienced these ads, and then they had these behaviors, but we can't tell you which one had which one ad view. So that's going to be changing, but I'm not sure it modifies a ton of what your process should be.
Yeah.
So look, I think that broadly speaking, these big changes around privacy and advertising, third-party cookies, what I've been calling the death of attribution, although maybe it never really existed in the accuracy form that we think it did. Yes, that stuff will have an impact on most every marketer, but not even every. If you're doing SEO and keyword research and content marketing, it's probably not going to change a whole lot for you.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it changes a bunch for your VP of marketing or your client and how they choose to invest, but for you, less so. So I think this is one of the problems with being a marketer in the modern era, is that you consume a lot of content that says, oh my God, the sky is falling, everything's changing. And then you have to figure out, is my sky falling?
Yeah.
Are all these changes actually going to affect me? And if so, how? And what do I need to do? Or can I sort of consider it as background knowledge, keep doing what I'm doing day to day, only change my strategy and my tactics in response to things that actually change my results?
Yeah, I think that's a good perspective. And I think it's easy as a marketer kind of scroll through your LinkedIn feed and you couldn't possibly try to keep up with all the things that may or may not matter, right? I think it's a good segue into the piece that you published recently around ChatGPT and the kind of usage of. I think for us down under here, I guess we're looking at it in 2 ways, right? Like the way that us as marketers use tools like ChatGPT and Bard to help us do our job, but then what impact of users turning to products like that to find answers that they once would have turned to Google search for. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the piece that you did recently and kind of the usage of ChatGPT and what it's being used for. And is it growing? Is it kind of cannibalizing Google? Yes, no?
Oh, gosh, James, that is you know what a missed opportunity. I'm going to make myself a note right now on my whiteboard. So go ask the Datos folks if they can show me the last 2 years of number of searches performed on Google.com.
Yeah.
And we can compare that against the traffic to OpenAI and the number of prompts that people put in, because I bet, I would be willing to bet that Google has seen virtually no impact at all. Someone did do a study of whether Bing's traffic, right? Bing, of course, uses more of ChatGPT, OpenAI. They have a partnership. I think Bing, Microsoft is partly funding OpenAI, right, et cetera. And the growth of Bing's market share was less than 0.1%, and the shrinkage of Google's was less than 0.1%, at least in the United States.
Yeah.
Which suggests that almost no one from a consumer standpoint is going to generative AI to solve problems that they used to go to Google for. But that's a fascinating question.
I was doing a webinar. Yeah, cool. I was doing a webinar a few months back for an Australian audience and couldn't find anything very little data out there to suggest that that was the case.
So one of the articles I linked to in the ChatGPT piece was from I think it's a Substack writer who noted this research around, Bing versus Google. Ugly numbers from ChatGPT and Microsoft reveal that AI demand is already shrinking. So Bing's market share hasn't grown at all. This is basically, this is a ZDNet article. I think ZDNet actually owns my old company, Moz, now, as if Davis does. And as of mid-August, Bing had not grown at all. They're down 0.01%, 0.04% from January to July.
Because it's an interesting interplay, isn't it? Because I guess we're a little bit different down here. Bing has always had a larger cut through in the States than it does here. I think we're generally like 96, 97% Google, which is, I don't know, the numbers always seem a little bit elusive regardless of market. But then I guess
I think one of the smart things that Google did early on was, this is, my memory is like 04, 05, 06. Google really prioritized getting better results in even smaller markets, right? Australian market, New Zealand, South Korea, which is a relatively big market, right? But it's not. It's sort of top 10 countries. And Microsoft, first with, what was it, MSN search, and then live search, and then Bing, they tried to get everything right in the United States and Canada and then go from there. And seeing as they never caught up here, they just never grew their market share anywhere else either.
It's really, really interesting. And I guess the rollout or integration now of generative AI into the actual SERPs is kind of the big play there, right?
I mean, I think it was one of their hopes. Well, here's the way I would think about it if I were Microsoft, which is I'd kind of be laughing all the way to the bank, right? Because sure, my search share didn't grow, but I now have a technology and a brand and this partnership with OpenAI and have funded them kind of. I think they partially own OpenAI. I would be feeling excellent about the fact that is turning into a probably tens of billions of dollars a year product. And if you're Microsoft, I think the time to worry about, hey, are we winning or losing in search was 15 years ago. I think right now, the question is, how are we doing on market cap? How are we doing on technology as a whole? I'd be thinking much more strategically about ChatGPT versus, oh no, I'm not winning. As a marketer, though, we care a lot about whether people are using Google or Bing or whether they're going to ChatGPT and getting answers. And here's the way I would think about that. Generative AI will make its way into some search results in some ways. Maybe it will make searchers incredibly happier and more satisfied with their results, in which case Google will probably adopt it whole hog and it'll replace a ton of what we now call rich snippets or instant answers. Or maybe it will be a small piece, sort of like how Google News shows up in 0.85% of search results, or recipe cards show up in a lot of recipe type searches, whatever it is, right? So it'll be a niche inside of search that some marketers have to think about a bunch because their content applies to that and some don't. Again, I go back a little bit to does it affect you right now?
Yeah.
If not, the only thing I would really be thinking about is, can I get my brand name next to more mentions of the words and phrases I want to be associated with all around the web? Because that's the sort of equivalent of keyword research and link building for a generative AI solution, right? If you and I go to ChatGPT now and we say, hey, what are the leading CRM tools? It's going to give us, Salesforce and HubSpot. And that's because so much of the content it was trained on has those brand names next to all the words, right? Because ChatGPT is just a predictive text or predictive token system. And so if I'm trying to compete with, folks in the CRM tool space, I want my CRM to be mentioned anytime the word CRM tool is mentioned.
Yeah.
And that means, how do I get in the New York Times? How do I get in Wikipedia? How do I make sure anybody who's talking about it on Reddit is talking about it? How do I make sure anybody who's talking about on Twitter or on LinkedIn or Facebook or, text that shows up in YouTube transcripts and comments, all of that stuff. Which
I think from our view, like, it feels like an extension of what good marketing has been over the last 5 to 10 years anyway, right? Which is for those listening and not watching, Rand is sipping honey lemon tea and pointing at me
making crazy eyes, making making crazy
yes,
eyes.
Of course. But that's right? Like it's I mean, Google's kind of scoured the web for the last 20 years, and AI is kind of scouring text and databases and content, and it's like, what are the pointers in the right direction for the kind of the leader in this space, and looking at, I guess, high quality references versus low quality references.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think the other question to ask is, do people go to ChatGPT and search for answers to questions that lead them directly to brands they would buy from? And we don't have that answer today, but I looked at thousands and thousands of ChatGPT prompts, and I saw very little of that. Honestly, I don't think I saw, out of all the ones I analyzed, maybe one or two could I classify as, oh, that's the type of search I would expect someone to do at Google. And then the results that are returned by ChatGPT actually led someone to a brand that they might buy from that they wouldn't have considered previously. It's a task engine, right? It's do this thing for me, not I am curious about where I should go to sort of buy a solution to a problem.
Yeah, that's it. And so Rand's referencing an article that he published in late August on the SparkToro blog. And what was it, Rand? It was a huge data set, right?
So we looked at millions of visits or millions of devices that visited OpenAI.com and ChatGPT specifically. And we also manually analyzed thousands. Well, I say manually. I manually analyzed hundreds, and then we had thousands and thousands of full prompt series. So between 1 and 5 or 6 prompts that people had entered into a ChatGPT session, and we were able to see what those prompts were and the full text of them. And then we used a classification system, ChatGPT itself, actually, inside Google Sheets, to classify those about 4,100 of these 7,000-ish prompts. We threw out a bunch of them that were, weird, short, one word, just mistakes, poking around. People would put weird things in, like mustache. That was
you, Rand.
Yeah, that was me. And And, those kinds of prompts are not particularly useful, but the ones that appeared to be real prompts, which was, more than half of them, we analyzed those, we classified them into, essentially what was their purpose, what was the person trying to accomplish here, and then produced this big report that gives a breakdown of all of those. And you can see many of the common words and phrases that people use in their ChatGPT prompts, like create and learn and list and build and a lot of stuff around programming, right? JavaScript and Ruby and et cetera.
Which kind of lends itself to your point earlier around we don't really know where Google and Bing take the integration of generative AI into the SERPs, but it's not entirely implausible that lots of it remains unchanged and that certain queries will lend themselves more to this kind of content. I've got the data in front of me, and 30% of the queries you analyze were programming related, 23% education related, 20% content related. I presume that's creation of content. So that's 50. Yeah. So that's almost 75%, right? Then you got 13% sales and marketing, 6.7% personal and other, 3% political and not-for-profit. So they're not, to me, that's not kind of screaming, what's the best enterprise software to do X, or who's the best agency to do Y, or, where can I buy certain types of fashion?
Yeah, so those types of queries would fall under two subcategories in education. One is personal education and one is professional education.
Yeah.
And then there was sort of education in terms of school, right? So I'm doing homework, or I'm trying to put together a lesson plan for my class. That one was the largest in the education segment. Yeah. And then personal and professional education, which is where you would classify probably most of the prompts that one might use to replace Google, that, we're talking about sub 10% of all ChatGPT users.
Yeah, cool. I suspect that trolling through 8,000 prompts would make for some pretty interesting bedtime reading, Rand. But...
I will say, part of me, I really appreciate Datos obviously sharing this with me, and they're, we signed some stuff, made sure it was all privacy compliant. Everybody opted in. I opted, I made sure that I would not be sharing, for example, with you and the public, like what's actually in the prompt. But I was disturbed. If I remember correctly, the very last prompt in the 4,098, 4,100 that I analyzed was someone asking ChatGPT to create a number of anti-Semitic arguments for, like why the Nazi party was right. And that wasn't great. I don't know. I mean, my hope is maybe this is a
good actor
at a university who's looking to challenge their students and try to get them to fight back against, the ideas that are popular on the web around hate speech.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful, but it didn't look like that. It looked a little more problematic.
Oh my God.
So there are some weird use cases.
Hopefully someone trying to prove that, ChatGPT isn't safe and needs at some level to be
maybe
regulated.
That's it, right? They could be completely trying to research ChatGPT's potential for hate speech or promoting hate speech. Yeah.
Let's hope that is the case. I think it's really good, a good perspective, kind of control what you can as a marketer. Let's not get too bogged down in the big shifting, tectonic plates. Let's, worry about our patch, which I think leans into the next area I'd love to chat with you around, dark social, because I think that is an area I don't think lots of us understand what's happening there. And I think if we do, and if we can arm marketers with a better knowledge of that, it helps to make arguments within businesses and to explain actually what's happening out there for a brand. Can you kind of just talk about the concept? There's a really good piece on the SparkToro blog around it, which I'd urge everyone to kind of read. But can we explain it? Because I think people just don't understand that this is a reality.
Sure. Yeah. So the dry, boring version of this is all the social platforms over the last 10 years have, to some extent, either prioritized linkless native content, right? A post on Twitter, a post on LinkedIn, a post on Facebook, a post on Reddit that contains no link to a third-party website, right? No link to the open web. And they have also all pulled back on their logging of analytics attribution, So the ability to see that a visitor from LinkedIn came from LinkedIn is gone in about 30-40% of all visits that LinkedIn sends out from its platform.
How does that actually happen? So literally 100 people visit my website from LinkedIn. Yep. And when I look into GA, it's showing
no referrer string.
Yeah.
Which GA will classify as direct or type in. Right. So here's the real story, in my opinion, which is these platforms are not dumb. They didn't do any of this by accident. Here's what happened. The leadership sat in a room and they said, hey, we noticed that a lot of people are getting a lot of value from, let's say we're LinkedIn.
Yep.
A lot of people are getting a lot of value from LinkedIn and they're posting links to their website. We're sending hundreds of millions of visits every year off of LinkedIn. Why are we doing that? We could be keeping more of those. And if we kept more of them, marketers would learn over time that the only way to reach people on LinkedIn is to advertise with LinkedIn. Also, when we do send traffic out, which should be less often, let's not let people know that we sent that traffic. That way they don't go invest more in organic LinkedIn. They invest more in paid LinkedIn because paid is the only way that will show them the real attribution. This sounds nefarious and malicious. It's not nefarious and malicious. It's capitalism, right? It's a bunch of people sitting in a room and going, well, how do we make more money? Well, does this hurt people? Just some marketers. Screw them. Give me the money.
Follow the money. Follow the money.
I mean, yeah, that's the story of big tech over the last 15 years, right? That progressively every platform, Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Reddit, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, every one of them starts out more marketer friendly, consumer friendly. And then over time, I think Cory Doctorow has actually written an outstanding piece about this called the enshittification of the internet. And he basically, proposes that every platform, every major platform that has success by being outstanding to its users. And then over time, it realizes it can trade user value for advertiser value, right? How do we be awesome to the marketers and the advertisers who are going to fund our platform and make us lots of money because we have to show that to our investors so that we can go public. And then after you go public and they realize growth is slowing, they start being shitty to those advertisers and marketers as well so that they can keep all the value for themselves.
Enshittification.
The enshittification of the internet happens in big tech. I know, shocking. It's one of those things where you read the piece from Doctor and you're like, wow, that's so insightful and very well written and incredibly obvious.
But we're down in the weeds.
Yeah.
But how do you suggest or recommend that the in-house marketer who their reports are saying, the sales are coming from Google Ads and from SEO, how, as a humble marketer where you've kind of got, vested interest in the organization and stakeholders kind of, we're all marketers, we know how to do it, you're not doing a good job. Like, how do you push back on this and kind of advocate for the marketing that is actually working, but it's difficult with data to prove that? Because we've kind of, we've been preconditioned over the last 20 years to, data is everything and data doesn't lie. And I make all my decisions based on data. And I can see you rolling your eyes, and we're trying to, wage war against that as well. Data can help, but Absolutely. a lot of it's meaningless or fake or doesn't tell the full story. So practical ways to kind of actually try to push back on it.
Yeah, I'm not arguing here entirely against being data informed. I think data driven is a little more dangerous because it removes all creativity and removes all sort of serendipitous opportunity, right? You'll never find a new channel. You'll never find a next big opportunity if you are only studying what worked in the past.
100%.
But I would say two things. One, it is marketers' job to tell the same story that you and I are telling today to their boss, team, clients. That is your obligation, marketers. You have to storytell and say, hey, this is what's happening in the world. And here's why it's happening. You can understand why Google and Facebook and all these companies have an incentive to do this. Here's what some smart companies have done. They have accidentally or intentionally turned off ads for a set of time, right? 60 days, a 90-day ad shut off. They didn't shut off all their ads. Maybe they tested shutting off half the ads, 30% of the ad spend. And then they tried to see, hey, did we see the same number of conversions a month later, 60 days later, 90 days later, 6 months later? Boy, if we did, that means we were wasting that money on advertising. That means Google was lying to us about whether that assisted conversion really assisted, or whether they just had enough user data to put our ad in the user's journey between learned about us and bought from us. In which case, we have a lot more advertising budget to pull back on and redistribute into channels that can help more people learn about us who will buy from us.
Yeah.
That story should not be hard to tell. It's a powerful one, right? And it's clever, it's thoughtful, it's also data informed. It's saying, hey, I'm not telling you exactly which channels aren't performing. I'm saying we should test. And the only way to test is to pull back, right? You have to shut it off and then see if you keep getting those conversions. And this is what happens time and time again. In a ton of these stories that I've seen, it is we shut off a bunch of our ads or even all of our ads, and we saw that we still got 90% of the conversions. Something is very wrong.
I remember, I don't know if it was one of your pieces, it might have been, but the analogy being that it's, certain segments of advertising, very much like putting a, handing out pamphlets or putting a billboard at the front of your retail store and kind of claiming that was the thing that drove the person as they, went into your car park to come in to purchase anyway.
I mean, I think that there's two analogies going on here, right? One is some ads are presenting exactly the right kind of product to the right kind of person at the time of purchase. You could think of a Google shopping ad for a product someone's just searched for, and you have exactly that product, and you have the best price and also a brand people have heard of and have a positive association with, and you have it in stock, and you've got free delivery, and most of your competitors don't. Well, great. Should you buy that ad? Probably you should buy that ad. If you don't buy that ad, will the Google shopping users even see you? No, they probably won't. Yeah. This is also similar to I'm selling skincare products on Instagram, and I have a great little short ad video, and my ad video gets lots of views and gets a surprising number of clicks on Instagram. And I can see that the purchase happens after the video view and after the click in the same session. Yeah. Well, okay, that's probably driving a lot of my revenue. Those two examples are completely different to I'm selling software as a service to chemical engineers at plants across North America. And it's a 6-month to 12-month sort of life cycle of people learning about us and our brand and our product, and getting into our sales funnel. And, my marketing qualified leads are coming through from these channels and they're turning into sales qualified leads. And in those cases, you can shut off all advertising and see, we kept getting leads for a long time. In fact, we saw very little. What's going on? Oh, what's really going on is that it was our brand, our PR, our content, our organic social, our event presence, our salespeople, all those things, our email marketing, those were way outperforming advertising. But what Google and Facebook and Apple were really good at was making sure that chemical engineers who matched our customer profile saw our ads somewhere as they bounced around the web, knowing that some of those people were going to buy from us eventually anyway, or get onto our list. And so really all they're doing is knowing lots about the behavior of internet users and injecting themselves into the process. The most obvious one of these, of course, and the last example I'll give is paid search for branded terms. Yeah. Right. So somebody searches for SparkToro.
They're looking for you, Rand.
No. Yeah. I mean, obviously, right. If we buy the paid ad, they're going to have heard about us in lots of other places. And if we didn't buy the paid ad, we rank organically for it anyway. And maybe some percent of all the people who search for it are going to click on the organic listing for SparkToro. But Google's kind of like, well, we can sort of play the mafia game of like, oh, it would sure be a shame if one of your competitors was to come in here up top in front of you. Right? That's essentially what they're saying with buy our paid branded ad. If you don't buy the branded search term for your brand, we're going to sell it to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the risk.
Literally yesterday with a client, and that exact principle, right? Which was organic conversions had trailed off. And we were like, yeah, but you guys fired up branded ads at exactly the same moment, and they're going like this. And like, there's no, in this instance, not even any competitor bidding. It was like, guys, you're spending money to rob Peter to pay Paul, and you're the same person anyway.
I mean, here's the only logical reason I've heard why you should buy branded paid ads in that case. And that is if the money is largely meaningless to your bottom line and margin, right? If it's like, oh, well, we're paying 50 cents a click for those. And, the average, purchase price is $5,000 over 2 years or something. And we just want to know all the variations of branded keywords that people are using, which Google refuses to provide organically, but they'll give us all of them with the paid. So let's buy a paid ad.
We had some work in the hotel space where it worked as well, where basically Booking.com, Expedia, the OTAs were siphoning off if you're the direct hotel, and that otherwise you literally, because they could sell your inventory, take their 15 to 25%. And we actually did the extreme test you're advocating, which was we turned it all off and bookings went down, bookings to the OTAs went up, and we went back and kind of bought direct. But I agree with you. I think in the vast bulk of instances, unless you're spending a very small amount of money to kind of control that narrative, it's a hard play. In terms of the dark social data, I just wanted to kind of share it. Percentage of visitors attributed to direct. So this is visits from these platforms. We talk like the research you did, TikTok 100%, Slack 100%, Discord, WhatsApp. So basically, if you're getting any traffic from those platforms, you're getting absolutely nothing in your GA saying they're coming from there. Facebook and Instagram, was it 75%, Rand?
Yeah.
So it's kind of anything being shared there, which is also potentially much higher quality traffic, right? You've got things being shared, referrals, people who are so bought in.
It really depends on the platform, right? For some people, TikTok traffic is very valuable to them if the demographic is the right match, and for some people it's useless. Like funny story, SparkToro had a couple times where we went viral on TikTok. Some creator in the marketing world did videos about us and got hundreds of thousands of views, sent a ton of traffic to SparkToro. Oh my God, the worst quality traffic you've ever seen in your life. Like, just honestly terrifying. People who clearly had no idea what we were, how to use it. They couldn't even figure out an email sign up. They were sending us really terrible message. Everybody was signing up with fuck you at gmail.com. And this sort of, why did you bother? Why even enter that email? You're not going to get the confirmation code for it, right? I mean, unless you really own that email address, which strong
email.
Yeah. Strong email choice. But I'm just saying, right, that it's different for every different provider. And what that research shows is that dark social is usually somewhere between 20 to 100% of all the traffic that you might see from a particular network. And if you are looking in your referral data to try and figure out which channels are valuable to us, you're playing the game wrong. Because those channels that underreport the traffic they actually send you, and the channels where you don't participate, guess what? They're not going to look good.
It's fascinating. I would encourage all listeners to the pod to read the article and then see how it potentially applies for the business you're marketing. You mentioned SparkToro, Rand. I'd love to jump into that now. So was it 2018 that you started? Am I right? 2018?
Yeah. So right.
Why did we launch SparkToro? And then what is it? Talk us through it for those marketers that aren't yet aware.
Sure. See, whenever someone says, why did you start SparkToro? I always have that Homer Simpson moment where his brain says, don't say revenge. Don't say revenge. Don't say revenge. And then Homer, of course, revenge? That's it. I'm out of here. for folks who might not know the story, I had a contentious last few years at Moz after I stepped down from the CEO role, and I think SparkToro was in part a personal mission that I had to prove, mostly to myself, but also to a small number of people on my board of directors who maybe didn't listen to me at my previous company, that maybe I still knew what I was talking about and could build a successful software product for marketers.
Yeah.
And SparkToro is something I strongly believe marketers need, which is essentially to be able to understand not just the channels, but the individual sources of influence across channels and on channels that are often ignored that reach their audiences. So, if it turns out that if you want to sell an indie video game in North America to an audience who really loves crafting and strategy games, you need to be in front of, these creators on Twitch and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. And who are they? Which ones? How would you find out? You could, what could you do? You could survey and interview your audience. That's really tough, right? How do you find people who play games? They don't really publicly post about them. You might be able to do some Steam review data mining, but it's pretty tough. How do you figure out where dentists in California are getting their dental equipment? Sources of information, right? What newsletters or events or conferences or trade publications do they read and pay attention to? Are there particular Facebook groups they're part of or accounts they listen to on LinkedIn? All of that kind of stuff. It doesn't fit under the classic definition of dark social. What it fits under is hard to identify sources of influence. I keep the word influencer out of my mouth because influencer has come to sort of mean half-naked person on a beach with a six-pack who's like, here, you should buy this blender and you can have six-pack abs and a beach like me. Yeah. And that's not what I mean. What I really mean is all the niche sources of influence that could potentially influence a person and a group of people. And that's what SparkToro is designed to help people do. And it's been nice. We did not launch until 2020. So this is our third year of operation as an actual product. Yeah. But it's helped tens of thousands of marketers already. That's pretty exciting.
It's brilliant. I think the whole influence, like the influence of being a dirty word, it just shouldn't be. And I think us as marketers need to kind of rise up against that, because it is like digital marketing is becoming old school marketing, right? And I think a tool like yours helps businesses, particularly those that might not have huge research budgets. Some of the, if you're in a big corporate, you can kind of go off and find, information. You can pay to have big bodies of research done to help find, the dental this or the gaming influencer in a certain market. So hard if you're like the vast majority of marketers that are operating in a business.
I think
it's
what's so funny. I was thinking about this the other day with do you remember the television show Mad Men that was on maybe 10 years ago? Yeah, right. So classic, right? John Hamm plays this director of an advertising firm in the 1950s and then into the 60s in the United States in New York. And the clothing's great, the script writing's great, the dialogue's great. It's more than a little misogynistic, but which probably the advertising world certainly was too. Yeah. But the interesting part that I was thinking about is there's a scene where it shows a client, potential client for the ad agency coming into the firm, and they're all wearing suits and whatever. And one of the guys who works at Sterling Draper, the fictional name of the company that's supposed to represent one of the big New York ad agencies, pulls a binder off the shelf. And the binder is filled with information about where you can go to reach certain demographics. And so I think the advertiser in this case, the client, is a car company, and they talk about the car that they're making and who they want to reach with it. And they look and they say, okay, well, according to the research, we need to be on this channel. We need to be on this time slot. We want to be on these 3 shows. We want to be in these 2 magazines. I think they mentioned like Time Magazine and NBC, in the major cities. So they had, that research came from giant, large-scale survey data, right? These big survey firms would ask 1 million Americans, like, hey, where do you, what do you watch and read and listen to? Who are you? Blah, blah, blah. So if you wanted to reach a dentist, you'd go into an ad agency, they'd grab the binder and they'd tell you, okay, great, you're going to be advertising in these 3 papers. There's no binder, right? In the internet era, all that data is right on the web.
Yeah.
We could find it, right? We have things like clickstream data sources and social following graphs, APIs, and search results. We could cull all that data together, amalgamate it, and then build a binder. And that's essentially what SparkToro is.
Yeah.
It's sort of the ad agency binder for the 21st century.
There's a blog article surely on the SparkToro website for that. You Donald Draper. There's something in there, Rand.
Just much less drinking, no terrible behavior towards women, and yeah.
The comparison between the two. Where do you think it plays really strong? The actual software, like who's it an absolute no-brainer for?
Absolute no-brainer if your brand or company sells to a certain set of professionals. Right. So like B2B use cases or even B2C that targets an interest group that describes themselves publicly online. For example, tabletop role-playing game enthusiasts. They all of these people are not shy about putting, the TTRPG hashtag in their whatever Mastodon and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram profiles. And so it's very easy to identify them. Dentists, orthodontists, interior designers, chemical engineers, podcasters, right? Anything where they publicly describe who they are, and that's your perfect audience, SparkToro's aces. It gets much more challenging and much we often don't do a great job when your target is, well, pretty much everyone. Right? If you're selling car insurance or homes, right? Oh, I'm trying to sell real estate in Brisbane. Yeah. Well, everyone's kind of a home buyer potentially. I mean, obviously there's demographics around it, age groups and income groups, but SparkToro, that data is not publicly available on the web. And we don't try and, get whatever, what Facebook does, right? Where they buy data from banks to get that sort of private data and then apply that to profiles so that you can do targeting that way. We don't do that. And we never will. We think that's unethical, even though it's not technically illegal in every country. But anything that's publicly available data that's on public profiles, we anonymize and aggregate. And that's why it works so well for B2B.
And that's always the challenge with B2B, right? Like obviously LinkedIn can give you some certain targeting, which helps, but it's really challenging to in those more niche areas to actually.
Well, remember, so a few years ago, remember, James, when Facebook Audience Insights existed? Like 2010 to 2016, and then right, Donald Trump gets elected, and it's the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and so Facebook like pulls all audience insights out of your organic Facebook pages. But in Facebook Audience Insights on your page, it used to tell you like, oh, people who follow your page also are interested in these brands, these companies, these pages, these public groups. That was awesome. Twitter used to do the same thing in Twitter Analytics. They pulled back on it, right? So all these companies have all this data. They're using it to show your ads and sort of, get you as an advertiser, but it's your data. You built that audience. You're the reason people are coming to your Facebook page, your Twitter account, your LinkedIn account, your page, whatever, your subreddit. And they're hiding it from you so that you'll buy ads from them. And I think that sucks. I think you should get that data. And yeah, that's This is one of the reasons that SparkToro is also very, a very inexpensive product, is because we want to help a lot of like small and medium-sized marketers. We don't have any like enterprise support for like, I feel a little bad. There's a very large, one of the big 5 ad agencies in the world has been trying to get a SparkToro subscription, but they need you to like jump through a bunch of hoops and provide them with whatever support and all these guarantees and security compliance checks. And I keep writing to them and being like, we're not going to do it.
You've designed this business to allow you to live the life you want, to cook the nice meals
exactly.
you want to cook.
I'm not going to do it. Sorry, man. Omnicom or whoever, just like go away. You can buy this data from other people. You can build it yourself, right?
What because it's a free trial, so anyone out there, sign up, free trial.
No free trial. We'll do you one better though. We have a forever free version, so you never need to pay.
Okay,
don't have to put in a credit card. You can just have a free account that you use. I think we have more than 100,000 marketers who use the free account every month, just completely free.
Yeah.
So go play around, do your research, and if you're using it and you're like, gosh, I actually really want more from this. Like I want to see more rows of data, more kinds of data. Great. Then you can sign up and it starts at $50 a month.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And where's the product going? What's the, where do you see it kind of heading in the next few years?
Well, so I think we're about to come out with a V2 of the product. I don't know if it'll be out by the time this pod launches, but the V2 will be a little bit of a different interface. And on the back end, it is using some new kinds of data sources, including the same clickstream data set from Datos that we used for the ChatGPT analysis. Mm-hmm. So if you're kind of like, wow, how did they get all that data about what people visited and how much traffic it got and where they went after and before? That's how, right? We can get that data from Datos. I have been a huge fan of Eli Goodman's, who runs Datos for a long time. He and I worked together at JumpShot back when I did those Google zero-click studies at the end of my Moz tenure and then into the start of my SparkToro one.
Yeah.
And so that is underpinning. And then we have a large amount of public profiles from LinkedIn, which is great. And we sort of marry those two together with a third data source, and that is search data. So for the first time, SparkToro, many people have been asking us like, hey, it's great to see like which sources of influence, which websites, which social accounts are popular with my audience. I also want to see which keywords are popular with my audience. What are people searching for? And so now we'll be able to offer audience data around keywords as well. So that's where it's going. And then I think, to be honest, Casey and I don't love to predict out 18 months here. We really like being responsive. So I think we're going to launch this, see what people love, what they don't love, what they use, what they don't use, and then double down on the things that people are asking for and want. So
I love it. It sounds like Rand's revenge tour is in full flight.
It's funny that, I say revenge, but the interesting thing is the longer the time frame is that you move away from some painful incident, the less sharp those edges feel. Yeah. Right. And, Moz has sort of faded to me into that was sort of a lovely learning experience. And I made a lot of friends and, I got to have wonderful connections to people like yourself, and a lot of marketers know who I am because of that experience. So I don't know, maybe, I don't have to carry a grudge about it. It's okay. It's in the past. I was young.
Yeah. Otherwise
hopefully I'll make fewer of those mistakes going forward. I think, Lost and Founder, the book I wrote, is kind of a nice literal bookend, right, to that journey, and tries to tell me and other people, hopefully, what not to do in the future.
Yeah, I think you've definitely added to the industry, right, and helped a lot of people make sense of things that potentially very, very complex, and it's hard to make the complex simple, which you do. Which is
probably a better legacy than, my company was worth $1 billion, right?
Yeah, be nice to have both, though.
Not the worst tragedy. I mean, here's the thing, though, James. I'm not sure if you maybe you're personally connected to a lot of very high net worth individuals. Geraldine and I have come to know a good handful of people in our lives who have lots of money or way too much money. And I don't think they're actually happier or better off. Like I think diminishing returns start somewhere in the low few millions of dollars, and then they continue, and once you get to 10, 20, the drop off is extreme, right? And I think, unfortunately, a lot of very wealthy people struggle to search for meaning. And think that they're supposed to use their money to buy themselves happiness and also to immunize themselves against criticism. And it becomes really tough because a lot of the global narrative is about how rich people are destroying the world. And that is a true narrative. But I think it creates this, just sort of ugly psychology in a ton of those folks. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would trade. I wish Moz had made us some more money, sure, but I think $1 billion is the wrong amount.
That's good. I think it's good for you to have that perspective. And yeah, for sure. I think the definitely observing people that I know that have a lot of money, it doesn't bring happiness. I think, happiness is human connection and a safe place to live and good food on the table shared with good people. And that's kind of, and then the time and the resources to do the things you like, right?
Yeah, which more money gets you to a point.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that's right.
Absolutely agree. And I think money is just it's a really tough topic. People aren't willing to have very open and honest conversations about it, which sucks. I'm actually hoping, James, to write a sequel to Lost and Founder in probably the next 18 months, maybe publishing in a couple of years. And spend a whole chapter on the money stuff that nobody talks about. Because, Moz did sell, right? It sold to Ziff Davis. I mentioned, I think it sold in 2021. And that was a very strange, life-changing amount of money for us, but also awkward, scary, sad in a lot of ways. And yeah.
Really interesting. And I think that, and the thing is, most Australians would say that Americans talk much more openly about money than we do, which I think
that's true.
Yeah. So I think that'd be
true. Americans don't, in my opinion, talk about it nearly enough, especially higher earners, because I think many folks are ashamed, right? They feel like, and maybe some shame should accompany, when a vast majority of your country is living in, just terrible conditions and there's no social safety net. You should probably feel ashamed that you managed to, be one of the few at the top. But also, if you don't have those conversations, it's pretty tough to change things. Yeah.
Wow. This is not where I thought our podcast would go, Rand. I love it though. It's great. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
I've got, it kind of segues into the final part of the pod, career advice for in-house marketers and young marketers out there. So I normally finish the pod with what's the one piece of career advice, but if you could just for a couple of minutes just talk about what advice would you give to that marketer out there that is kind of starting out, is in their first role, their first couple of roles, like what's going to make for career success based on what you've seen?
Specialization. I think specialization is one of the keys to building not just a successful career, but a career where you are known for something and therefore recruited for that thing. And it's the demand that's in these small niches, and when I say specialization, I don't mean specialize in Google advertising. No. But if you specialize in Google advertising for boutique hotels, yes, that's the kind of specialist level that I'm talking about. And then when people say, gosh, I really need someone who's an expert at this, you'll be the person on everyone's lips. You'll be the name that is associated with that. The other piece of advice is you have to do marketing for yourself. I know that lots of people don't love personal branding and they don't love personal content creation. And I'm not telling you have to do a lot. But if you want to be successful in the marketing world, you need to be known by other people who might help your career, recruit you, suggest you to people who are looking, recommend your work to potential clients or your next employer, even just connect you with people who you get along with. And so my suggestion is you have two ways of doing that. One is content on the internet, social media content, a blog, video series, a podcast, right? All those kinds of things where you share your knowledge, you publish what you know and what you've learned, and you help people in those ways. And the second is personal communication. You can maybe do it through email, one-to-one emails or an email marketing list, which I really term in the first bucket of sort of content creation for the web, or in person. And in person is weird because events in the digital marketing space have been shrinking dramatically, even as the field has grown.
Yeah, it's weird.
10 years ago, there was probably 200 events worldwide for digital marketers that had more than 500 attendees. Now, I don't think I could name 12. So it is shrunk dramatically, and that sucks. It's a problem. But going to those events, you will find people who are excited to meet you, who want to, network and in a kind and friendly sense, and also learn from you. If you get on stage or pitch content and get in front of organizers, even at local stuff, that can make a difference too. So those are the two ways that you sort of get your knowledge out there. Just like anything else, right? No, you're a marketer, so you know that no great product just is made, launched, and then people just find it. That's not how anything works. Nothing works that way. Same thing with you and your career. You've got to let people who might help you, who might want what you do, know what you can do that's unique. And the way to get that uniqueness is to specialize.
Love it. It's great advice. Thanks for being so generous with your time today, Rand. Really, really appreciate it. I recommend all the listeners, SparkToro.com. It's not a free trial. It's free forever. But even putting that to the side, sign up to Rand's content. It's as I said, to kick off the pod, when something hits my inbox from you, Rand, I love it. It's thought-provoking. It makes me think. It makes me question what we're doing for our clients. I'm glad the whiteboard is back. It's behind him for those that are listening and can't see him. And I'm glad it's back and he's tapping it. It's real. It's not a Zoom background. But yeah, thanks so much for being on the pod, Rand.
My pleasure, James. Thanks for having me. Thanks, care.
Mate. Cheers.